Hi, friends. Welcome back to First Church of God. I am so glad that you joined us today. Hey, there are probably things in your life, my life, that we look back and we go, man, I wish I would have known then what I know now. So many times I come across that in my own life, things that I wish I would have known way back that would have saved me headaches and time and energy and other things that I know now. For example, back in around, I think it was 1983, I got the privilege of hiking the Grand Canyon. What a great experience that was. Grand Canyon is beautiful. And we hiked down on foot. We didn't rent the mules and ride down or anything like that. We were on feet, backpacks. And making that trip is a journey that you just don't wake up one day and go, oh, hey, it's Thursday. I think I'm going to go hike the Grand Canyon. You can't do that. There's a lot of legal things and reservations and things to do that have to be done in advance, especially if you're going to do like we did and stay at Sky Ranch, which is all the way at the bottom. Now, the shortest distance from the beginning, the rim, to down to Sky Ranch is just jump. Not a good way to go. But the pathway, it takes a long time and it's downhill just about the entire way. There's a few ups, but you're going downhill all of the way. Well, what I wish I would have known then that I know now is that I took too large of a backpack. I had the kind that has the aluminum frame. It was orange, and I put a sleeping bag in there, and probably more than two changes of clothing, and a coat and socks, and at least six pairs of socks, because as you're walking down, your toes are jamming into the front of your boot, and you're wearing a hole through those socks as you go down. And I don't remember what else I packed. Oh yeah, I took my toothbrush and shampoo and things like that. Took some water, took some snacks, but I packed way more than enough. In fact, I had too much. And what I learned in the last year or so is we tend to pack what we fear running out of. We tend to pack what we fear running out of. So what I should have packed was only 10% of my ideal body weight. And not what I weigh, but what my ideal body weight is. And back then, I might have weighed 120, 125 pounds. I've gotten a little bigger over the years, but that 10% then would not have been enough, because my ideal would have been about 165, 175, which would have been a heavier pack. And what I ran into while I was trying to hike the Grand Canyon is my backpack was too heavy and it kind of weighed me down. And I do believe that we tend to pack what we fear running out of. We fear we're not going to have enough water, we're going to pack more water. Run out of food, we pack more food. Going to run out of clothing, we pack more clothing. We tend to pack not just when we're backpacking, but maybe when we travel, maybe when we're just living day to day, we tend to hold on to more things than we really need, and they weigh us down. The more weight, the more miserable we're going to be, which is what we've been looking at for the past few weeks, because the Bible tells us in Proverbs, the wisest man in the world, wisest man to ever live on the earth other than Jesus, wrote these words in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guard your heart. Not the one that goes pum, 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 and keeps your blood moving, which I really like that one to keep working. But, guard your heart, guard your innermost being where Christ dwells, because everything flows from it. Today, I want to look at another heart issue. We've been talking about the heart and the issues of the heart, and we have been looking at 4 areas of our heart that at the root of them can sour our attitudes and our relationships and cause a lot of regret for the actions. We've been looking at these because I think they're very important for us to think about. God treasures. It's about what God treasures, and it's about the heart. And the 4 conditions that we've been talking about are guilt, anger, jealousy, and greed. And all of them can be associated with one thing: debt. Guilt says, I owe you. I hurt you, I owe you an apology. So the way that we overcome guilt is we confess to a friend, not to God, because God already knows, but we confess to the one that we hurt. Anger says, you owe me. Jealousy says, God owes me. And greed says, I owe me. So let's talk about greed today. Greed is a heart condition that deals with our possessions. Generosity is what overcomes greed. Greed it likes to camouflage itself as a virtue. And people that struggle with greed say, well, I'm just careful with my money, or I'm a saver. I am looking out for my family. I'm looking out for my future. I don't want to have to rely on someone else. I'm a good steward. I take care of my things, and I don't want them broken or torn up. Well, greed is kind of hard to see when we look in the mirror. And Jesus knew that. And he gives this parable in Luke chapter 12, starting at verse 15. He says, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist of the abundance of possessions. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store up a surplus of grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, that this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then you will get what you have prepared for yourself. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. I hope that you notice that first thing in the one of the first things in this verse 15. It says, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. So I'm going, wait a minute, there's more than one kind of greed, which I guess that's true. Oh, what are the different kinds of greed? Which one do I have? And I think the concern isn't so much about how many different kinds of greed there are, but where do they come from? And we know where it comes from. It's simple. We've heard this from week to week to week. It comes from the heart. Every decision you make comes from your heart, because greed is associated with fear, and we tend to pack what we fear running out of. It's a heart condition. Greed is not a financial issue, it's a heart issue. And finding the healing is very critical for our life. You may not see greed in the mirror, but those closest to you see it more than you want them to. When we think of greed, we think of Scrooge and all of his wealth and how he doesn't want to share it with anyone. And there's no compassion for other people. We say, well, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. But wait until that commercial comes on about the starving children, and you see their stomachs all pressed in, or the starving and abused animals and how pitiful they look. And the voice sounds so sad, like they're about to cry. But we don't help, because ultimately, someone has been exploiting this need, and we miss where the real need is. And the real need may just be across the room or around the corner. The parable isn't just about a greedy person, but it's about a person who has great wealth and the things and all these things, but they don't have a relationship with God, and they don't have a relationship with others. Everything is about themselves and what they have done. He doesn't give credit to the ones who made it possible or the ones that helped him out. He didn't plant the harvest that he owns. He had people do it for him, and he just sits back and he counts his money. Then, just like all of us, he dies. It was Moses who penned the words, Lord, teach me to number my days aright, that I may gain a heart of wisdom. All of us will either give away what we have while we are living, or we're going to have it taken away from us, or it's going to run out. If there is one sentence, a one-sentence moral of this parable, it might say, those whose eagerness to store up material goods outpace their willingness to give will suffer a complete and total loss when their time runs out. This man was rich in this world, but poor towards God and others, because everything that came his way was used for his private consumption. By the way, greed starts at an early age. Just watch toddlers as they play together, and one has a ball, the other one's won it, and they fight over it, and they go, mine, 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 and we teach our kids, share, share. They don't want to share because we don't want to share, and it's all about, it isn't just jealousy, it's greed, and Jesus has a name for people who are rich towards the, rich in the world standards, but poor to God. The name? Fool. I don't think any of us like to be called a fool, but that's what Jesus says, this man, you fool. The man in the parable says to himself, you have plenty of good things laid up for years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. And what I find is the more I have, the more I think about it, and the more I worry about it. If the cure for guilt is confession to the one that you hurt, and the cure for anger is forgiveness, and the cure to jealousy is to celebrate and have gratitude, what is the cure for greed? You tell the toddler the same thing Jesus tells us. You need to share. But it's mine, says the toddler. If you took your child to McDonald's and you bought them some French fries, maybe something to drink, and they're sitting there and they're eating the French fries. They're eating the French fries, dipping them in ketchup and enjoying them, having a good time. If you reach over and take one, what do they say? That's mine. That's mine. They forget it was you that went to the counter. It was you that took the money out and paid for it. And how often do we forget who the owner really is? First Chronicles 29:11. You, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor, for everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. The heart issue is an ownership issue. And in this parable, you see this owner use this personal pronoun of I or owl. I mean, he's talking about himself. 5 or 6 times you see that word used over and over. And it wasn't just a greed issue. I think he also had an identity issue. His identity was in the things that he had, not in relationships. True wealth is not measured with dollars and cents, but in the relationships that an individual has with God and with others. And many people find their identity in what they do. They find identity in what they have, and they find identity in what they have done. And I believe repairing the heart begins when we start to find our real identity. When we begin to see who we are and not what we are. And if you remove all of your titles, if I remove the title of husband or maybe it's you remove the title of wife and a parent and your job title, your position title, you remove all possession title or what other people see you as, and you take all of those things away, you strip away all of the things that this rich man had. And what the rich man didn't realize was a heartbeat is only temporary. And when the heartbeat stops, what do we have left? And what do you have left? If I strip away all of my titles, what do I have? I have that I am a child of God. The wealth and the possessions of the rich man were his security. What we own sometimes is our security. Some people hoard it because it gives them security. They hoard things or they hoard money. Too much stuff will make you stiff, and we're called to be staff, to support one another, to love one another, to help one another. And once you see who you are in Christ and that you were created not to hoard but to be generous, then your heart begins to heal. A wrong identity is a form of bondage. Identity comes from our core values and our beliefs. And those affect our attitudes and our behaviors. But so we have core beliefs and we have core values and we have our beliefs that gives us our identity. That's the heart of the matter. And if Jesus is the one that sits on the throne then it's going to determine our attitudes and our behaviors. What is sitting on the throne of your heart? Is it Jesus or is it possessions? And sometimes we're guilty of going and kicking Jesus off of the throne of our heart and putting those other things there. If you strip away everything that you define yourself as, your true identity, I hope you can say, I'm a child of the Most High God. And without a relationship with Jesus, you are no different than than anyone else in the world. And when you die, all you have left is given away to other people that don't appreciate all the work that you put in to making it possible. Jesus is showing us that greed is conquered through generosity. Generous giving will break the grip of greed in your life. Solomon said in Proverbs 22:9, this is from the New Living Translation, he says, happy is the generous man, the one who feeds the poor. Now, the opposite of that verse would say, miserable is the greedy man, the one who feeds himself. It is from the word miser that we get the word miserable. So where do we start? Well, look at what it says in 2 Corinthians 9, verses 6 through 8. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each one of you should give what you have decided in your own heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to bless abundantly so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Having money is not a bad thing, but money having you is the bad thing. Because what Jesus is more concerned about is your heart. It's a trust issue. Do you trust God with what He has allowed you to manage? Do you trust Him to take care of you? So again, 2 Corinthians 9:6, God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. And if you watch what the media is selling, you're going to be fearful of a recession and probably even fearful of a stock market crash. I trust the word of God over media because Psalm 37:25, it says, once I was young, now I am old, yet I have never seen the godly abandoned or their children begging for bread. Are you putting your trust in Him first or last? Do you determine what you're going to give back to Him for His kingdom and for other things? And do you determine your generosity after you've paid all of your bills and figured out a budget? If we seek God first, we put Him first. He has promised that if we will seek Him first, we will find Him, and everything is going to work out for our good. But we must be faithful with the little things so that when we are put to the test, we will be found faithful and He can trust us. If you say, well, you're going to give when such and such happens, when I get my raise, when I get my inheritance, when I get this, when I get that, that's what I'm going to give. If you don't start now, you won't do it then. You got to start as a habit now. Now is the time. So it will be a habit then. Overcoming greed. And go back to this rich young rule. Here's some things that I realized, the A's of this. Got to admit, your idol has been your identity. His idol was all of his possessions. His identity was all of his possessions. So we need to admit that that's a problem. Then we need to ask, where and how do you want me, God, to be generous? I believe that He wants us to start with the local church. And then the third A is act now. If you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never do anything. So let's fix the heart of greed. How is your heart? How are things in your heart? You want to see it fixed? Become generous and figure out who you are in Jesus Christ. Actually, it's not so much who you are, but whose you are. Who do you belong to? Hey, thanks for watching today. Blessings to you all. Bye-bye.